you guys doing? Welcome to Phie.Love Intuitive Conversations. I hope you guys are good. Yeah. If you like my content, please do like, share, and subscribe. And yeah, if there's any negativity, if there's any hate, please do keep that on your side of the street, okay? It won't be acknowledged. So, family, in this video, I'm being guided by Spirit to talk a little bit about something that you might find yourself going through when you start going into a process or moving into a phase in your life where the divine is starting to break down and strip you of your ego, right? From my own experience, I can tell you that it's not a pleasant thing to go through. It's not, it's an inner fight and an inner battle that you have to overcome and can only do on your own. And it's a period of time in your life where you will feel like you are being oppressed. You will be moving against a current in your life that will eventually break you. What do they say? Fish move with the current. Humans argue and fight the current until it breaks them, right? And then they have no choice but to move with the current. So if you find yourself going through a period of time in your life where you're frustrated, right? You go this way, there's a blockage. You go that way, something's not working. You go that way, things are breaking down. You go that way, a friendship, a connection, what seemed in the past like a way out, what felt like a solution that you could always turn to, suddenly it isn't that anymore, right? People are turning themselves. It seems, it looks, it feels like people have disappeared. People have dropped you, right? People have turned their backs towards you. People suddenly don't understand. Everything that normally used to just flow and used to be easy, used to work with your money, used to whatever it might be, right? It used to work. And suddenly there's just blockages. You're trying to create something and you're stuck, right? You're trying to do something that's motivated, by money or whatever it might be, and it just falls through, right? Meetings don't go the way they should. Plans keep caving in. Relationships around you just seem to be, hitting dead ends. Wherever you go, it's like a wall, right? And this is sometimes what happens when the divine is pulling you into a phase of breaking your ego down, of teaching you how to surrender, of removing things from your life that you have maybe struggled to let go of, push against things to always get your way, right? Always thinking you're right in certain things, and now where people were maybe always understanding, they're not so understanding. Where people would normally say yes, you find them pushing back. All of these things are designed are happening. The universe is breaking your ego down. The universe is trying to redirect you, right? The universe is trying to make you I don't want to say submit, okay, but to a degree, it's a form of, like I said, surrender. But I'm also going to say submission, because when your ego is breaking and when your ego is trying to fight against the current, it can feel like you're being forced to submit to something that you don't want. It can feel like you're being forced to submit to a way of life, or to a way of being, or to a solution, or to a pathway that you've been trying to avoid, yet maybe that way is the way to go. Maybe that is where the current is trying to move you, but your ego, who likes to be in control, your ego who likes to retaliate when it doesn't get what it wants, your ego that always thinks it's right, your ego that will make you fear things, your ego that will tell you you're losing something. All of these things that the ego, these mechanisms the ego uses to keep you in line, to keep you under its control, to keep itself in the driver's seat. All of these things, they're not going to succeed. They're not going to prevail over what the divine has planned for you, over the process that is actually happening. Okay? And your ego will retaliate. You will fight. You will try to find a solution here, a solution there, and it may even get so heavy to the point that you start even considering excuse me, that you start even considering illegal solutions to try and get your way. And you will not be protected. The divine will allow you to have to face repercussions, to get you to sit down and get you to surrender and get you to look at yourself. Right? People who are entitled, people who are in their ego, find accountability and surrender. It's translated within them because they're still operating out of from the perspective of the ego. It's translated within as oppression. It doesn't like to be told no. They don't like to be told no. When you're entitled, accountability and surrender feels like oppression. You will, it's in the beginning, because you're unconscious, you won't realize that the tantrum you're going through, the way you're trying to push against the current, the way you're trying to find every other way out, right? Trying to find every other way to achieve what it is that your ego says, right? It wants. It refuses to surrender to recognizing that this is not the way. This is not happening. Right? And you will keep on hitting the wall until you surrender. Your ego will throw a tantrum. That's how you will know. You'll have these tantrums that are thrown. You'll find yourself, like I said, hitting the same wall over and over and over again, hoping for it to come down. But when you're in the middle of this process of going through an ego strip and an ego breakdown, it's not going to happen. The divine corners you. You're like a goat in a, what do they call that on the farm? You know, a goat. When the goat tries to go this way and then the farmer blocks it. The goat tries to go the other way, the farmer blocks it, because where the farmer wants the goat to go is through the gate. The goat does not want to go through, right? Instead, the goat's trying to go left, the farmer goes left. The goat's trying to go right, the farmer goes right. Blocking. That's what happens until the goat decides to go where the farmer wants the goat to go, through the open gate behind it. It corners the goat. The divine will corner you. And, you know, where you think time is wasting, the divine has all the time in the world. And best believe, the decisions you've made over time, the divine has strategically influenced you to make those decisions to corner you. At that point, it's your divine time. So whether you like it or not, whatever tantrum you throw on the inside, however you try to avoid it, however or whoever you try to bring in and manipulate, or who you fight and argue and want to pay off and whatever it is, you're going to eventually find yourself having to go through that gate, the one that you're avoiding. Make the decision that you don't want to make, even though it might be for your highest good, even though it might require you, and it's probably the decision that requires you to drop your ego, that requires you to shed or release something, that requires you to have a conversation you've been dreading or avoiding having because of your ego, that requires you to show up without your mask on, that requires you to take the option that in your head you've decided is embarrassing, that in your head you've decided is not for you. Someone like you, why? Well, how can somebody like you, right? All of these things, if you've gone into a bit of a place in your life where you've unconsciously become a bit of a pretentious person, you're going to be cornered into making decisions at some point when it's time to break your ego down, time to break down the illusions that are going to challenge that pretentious behavior that you've gotten comfortable in. Maybe you've gotten lost in money. Maybe you've gotten lost in possessions. Maybe you've gotten lost in too much attention. Maybe you've gotten lost in people just giving you your way all the time. Nobody challenging your idea of your so-called authority that you only have, which is an illusion because of finances. The moment the finances go, the moment the illusion of whatever image it is that you're trying to keep up or hold together, whether it's with money you have or flexing off of debt, right? Whatever it is, the divine will break that down. The divine will corner you into making the decision that will have to make you face yourself. The decision that you've labeled as not for you, that's beneath you. The decision that has you judging people on the outside. The decision you're avoiding because it's the decision that you categorize everybody else into who you judge on the outside. When your ego is being broken, you throw tantrums, and in the beginning you throw the tantrums externally. When you start becoming more self-aware, you start recognizing your resistance to something, your resistance to making a choice, the tantrum you throw when you feel something is going to be taken away from you, or something is being taken away from you, or someone on the outside making a decision that makes you feel like like they have power over you, like they're an authority over you, where normally you are the authority. You'll be put into situations that will, have you learn how to actually be in a place to maybe take instruction, be in a place to listen, be in a place to humble yourself a little bit. The divine might strip you, right? Losing your money, all those things that put your ego up here, put your entitlement up here, that put your idea and your belief in an illusion that you're above other people, or that you're more worthy than others. And this is again, it's a layered issue, right? Until you're actually in the process of breaking down the layers of these different things that are built up because of our ego trying to protect itself, because of us making decisions that are around the fear of our ego, right? You don't realize how you've actually built up different aspects of your life around the fears of your ego, around your insecurities, around the programming that has intertwined with your ego, and made you afraid of looking like what the system has labeled to you as pathetic, what the system has labeled and programmed into you as poverty, what the system has labeled and programmed into you as not having the status that you're programmed to aspire to get, right? This is all in people's minds. This is how people's minds work and interpret the world, and what's governing them and influencing them when they're dealing with you, or you are governed by and influenced by when you're dealing and interpreting other people. And it's not easy to look at yourself. It's not easy to admit these things. It's not easy to recognize and look at yourself and, as an adult, and be like, oh, well, I'm throwing a tantrum right now because my ego doesn't like what it's being faced with. My ego doesn't like that it's being told no. My ego doesn't like that it's being told it has to take accountability. My ego doesn't like that it's being shown and told that it's wrong. My ego doesn't like that that someone on the outside is saying I can't have this. My ego doesn't like that there's a wall up here, there's an obstacle, that I can't get what I want. My ego doesn't want to accept that I might be at fault. My ego doesn't want to accept that me having me gathering having a group of people around me doing everything for me. My ego doesn't want to accept that it might be time for me to learn how to do things on my own. My ego doesn't want to accept that I am just like the other person on the outside of me who I look down on, who I judge, who I place a label on, who I reject, who I project disgust, negativity, shame, and all those things onto. I might just be like them, or maybe worse. My ego doesn't want to accept rejection. My ego doesn't want to accept that somebody might not be into me. My ego doesn't want to accept that somebody says no. How dare they? Do you know who I am? Do you know where I come from? Do you know my family name? It's all a layered issue. And depending on what aspect of your ego is being challenged, it will show in its own way. But generally, when the ego is being challenged, generally when the ego is being challenged, it will go into tantrum. It will go into resistance. It will throw the toys out the cot. Either within, or you'll find yourself being more extroverted and out, more outward about it. But in the moment you think that you're right, you think that you are acting within the right reasoning, right? You don't want to, you're not able to actually recognize and look at yourself and be like, okay, this is my ego being challenged. So if you find yourself having a hard time, surrendering to certain things that are just not working out, surrendering to certain things that are just not working out, a hard time dealing with people saying no, a hard time with timing, or whatever it is just not working in your favor. you're retaliating, you're lashing out, you're getting, you're unsettled, you're doing things, you're not thinking things through, you're, you know, involving people that you generally or normally wouldn't involve in your life and your situations. You're moving into desperation, because that's another thing as well. When your ego is challenged, you can move into desperation and start reasoning with yourself and convincing yourself that your desperation is warranted, that telling yourself desperate times call for desperate measures. Don't get lost in that shit. Sometimes you just need to fall back and accept the situation for what it is. Surrender and go towards the solution, the option, the choice, the gate that you've been trying to avoid, because maybe it's your ego that is the obstacle, yet it's a solution. Maybe it's your ego that's the obstacle, and you don't want to accept that the reason you don't want to choose a certain option or a solution is because it's injuring your ego. It's affecting your ego. Your ego doesn't want you to do that, but it's available and it's there, and it's probably what you should be doing. Take accountability for the way you think as well. Okay? And don't make your life harder because you're afraid of egoic things. You're afraid of, again, the moment if you can be real with yourself and be like, I'm avoiding a solution, I'm avoiding an option, I'm avoiding speaking to somebody, I'm avoiding taking this or doing that because I'm worried about what other people are going to think of me. That's your ego. That you put yourself in a place of suffering. You fold your arms. You become resistant. You become your own enemy. Because your ego says to you that you're going to look a certain way. Because you're afraid of being embarrassed because of what you've told yourself the outside world is going to think of you. You don't want to accept that you don't have the money to do something. The divine has tightened up your finances. But your ego is going to make you go out and engage now in illegal activities, going and getting loans, putting yourself into debt, going to loan sharks, and all kinds of weird shit. Because your ego can't accept that life maybe my abundance tap, it's the time in my life that my abundance tap has been closed for a little bit. I wasn't grateful. I wasn't managing my resources well, because there are periods in our lives where the abundance tap will be open, and we need to learn how to manage ourselves and not be frivolous with our energy, with the money we get, with what the universe and the divine is giving us. We have to make it work. We have to make it grow. We have to manage it. We have to have self-control, manage ourselves. But you're programmed by all kinds of things. You're caught up in consumerism. You don't think ahead. You only think about now. It's instant gratification. You don't care to learn how to manage your money. You think there'll always be money. You think there'll always be something else. It'll always be available, right? Because it hasn't changed yet. So you haven't made your plans. You haven't saved. Instead, you've gotten yourself into debt. You've gotten yourself into a truckload of subscriptions. The list goes on and on. The different ways that we express a lack of self-control and a lack of self-awareness, right? And the ego and the programming will just keep you going, and have you in the illusion that you're going to always be on top. The people are always going to be around. Everybody loves me. Things won't change. Right? And then the tap closes. The people who you thought were going to always be there, who were there for whatever it was that you were showing up in with, right, start falling away. And you start becoming desperate because you're trying to hold it all together. You're trying to keep it all in control. You're trying to keep control of the stability, right? Let it go. Take accountability. Accept your own behavior. Look at your own pattern, right? And understand maybe now it's time for you to surrender. Recognize when you're going into internal tantrum because something's not happening on the outside of you that you want to happen. Recognize when you're going into desperation because you're trying to break a wall down that isn't meant to be broken. You're trying to turn a no into a yes. You're trying not to go into the direction that the divine has been trying to guide you to go in. Because that would mean surrendering, that would mean letting go. That would mean having to release things, people in your life. Sometimes things need to break down, things need to stop in order to redirect you and rebuild you and put you where you need to be, okay? And recognize when your ego is going through a period of being broken down and stripped. I know for most men, when they go through that period in their lives, which can happen, it can happen around 40s, maybe even the 50s, right? When life really starts challenging you to change, life really starts challenging you to take accountability. You can't blame the past, you can't blame parents, you can't blame women. You have to look at yourself. You have to recognize that you are where you are because of your own decisions, your own actions, your own state of mind, your own way of being, your own cycles, your own addictions, your own lack of self-awareness and control, and your need for attention and external validation. The chase for money that is influencing all your decisions. You're being challenged to reevaluate your morals and your values. Do you operate out of morals and values, or are you someone who lacks all of those things? So all of this is going to challenge your ego, and all of it, once it falls away and once you start moving into a more grounded place, into a place where you're more accountable and no longer retaliating because your ego has you feeling, entitled and oppressed and fighting change, things will start to ease up and ease out. Okay? But take some time to go within and be self-aware. Recognize when it's resistance coming because, you don't like what's happening on the outside that you can't change. The divine will not allow something to change that they don't want changed. Okay, you will be cornered. There will be no other option. No person you can go to, not even finances, will change it. It's only you internally changing and surrendering and becoming self-aware and recognizing when you're throwing an internal tantrum and blaming something or someone on the outside when you need to surrender. Okay? Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, family, and I'm going to pull a card today from from the Flower Therapy deck by Doreen Virtue. Okay, and let's see what Spirit has to support our conversation or to guide whoever's watching our video or give them a nudge in a specific direction. Okay, let's see. May I please have one card, Spirit? Thank you. So I got 2. I'm going to go with Stand by Your Commitment. Okay, so the card says, you're strong enough to keep the promise that you've made. Don't back out now. Your angels believe in you. So don't let yourself down. Okay, and your ego will be the one to make you negotiate, to tell you that you can't move forward, that you can't do this, that you can't do that. Stand by commitments to yourself, and don't, when things become challenging, when things become hard, don't look for the easy way out. Don't let your ego get in the way of you getting to where you need to be. When you start, like I said, negotiating, when you start blaming, when you start throwing tantrums, when you start going into desperation, when you start looking frantically for different ways and people and solutions and whatever it is, slow down, pay attention, and reason with yourself and recognize it's your ego. Your ego is fighting. Your ego does not want to accept. Okay. So don't let yourself down. And the card, the flower we have here is the pink lily. Okay. Whatever it is, you can overcome it. And I mean, I know sometimes like surrendering can feel like you're going to die sometimes, because the ego fights to stay in control. The ego fights to be in charge. The ego fights to be the star of your show, to be the main character. It doesn't like to allow the soul and the divine to guide the way. Okay? Personality and the ego want to be everything, together with the physical world. So just become a bit more self-aware and start learning to overcome yourself and that fight. It can be really hard. I mean, to the point sometimes you even just have to go under the shower and wait for the unsettled feelings and energy and the resistance and the urge to do what your ego wants you to do. It can be a lot. So whoever overcomes those parts of life and themselves, you are really strong. Okay. Took me a while, but it's worth it in the end, and you have more control over yourself, and you are able to recognize when the different parts of you are in action, and when the ego is trying. Once you overcome a layer, you recognize when that aspect or the ego is trying to come in again and take control and override your own will. Stand by your commitment. Found it. The card says, your word holds a special purpose at this time. You may have promised yourself you'd enhance your connection to the angels or begin a new exercise regime or healthy eating plan. Pulling this card reminds you to stand by this commitment and see it through. Second thoughts about your decision are a trick of the ego's fear. What did I say? Don't negotiate. Stick to the plan by ignoring the low energy. Please remember that you're supported by the love of your angels. The deep pink of the lilies serve as a representation of the depth of the angel's love. Additional meanings to this card. Your first instinct is correct. Make positive commitments to yourself and others. There is a marriage or a new relationship on the horizon. You have the strength to get through this. Okay, so overcome yourself and your ego, and your ego will generally also be the thing that tells you to be afraid, that makes you want to move into the direction of the things that are not good for you, that you've gotten accustomed to and normalized into. And going through the process of creating new cycles and moving towards the things that are opposite to what your programming and the ego have gotten you over your lifetime accustomed to, can also be very challenging, and the things that your ego will fight against. Even if you're changing your sexual habits and all of those things, your ego will fight you. Your ego will be the voice that's negotiating with you, and the voice that's trying to tell you to do what's right will generally be the soul and the divine talking. Okay, you have to just center, be calm, and pay attention. I've said it before a long time ago. There will be two voices when you're going through this process. The one that's trying to keep you in the old, keep you pushing, keep you negotiating and doing what will work against you in the future or has always worked against you, and the other one that's trying to move you into a new direction and move you into a new cycle and towards what's for your highest good and not just what you want to satisfy right now. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there, family. I hope it's resonated. I hope it's supported a little bit, and I hope it's helped move you into the direction with courage, okay, and certainty that you've maybe been trying to avoid, and contemplating giving into your ego and giving into the tantrum, right, into the resistance and whatever else that loud chattery voice inside you is trying to get you to do and follow. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna leave it there. I'll see you in the next video. All right. Bye.